Welcome to What's Your Forte, presented by Bandology.
Hello and welcome to the 11th episode of What's Your Forte, presented by Bandology, the show where we interview professional musicians, conductors, composers, and educators about their musical journeys and the experiences that brought them to where they are today. Today we have Brian Vincent. Brian Vincent is a graduate from the Faculty of Music at the University of Toronto and completed his teaching certificate at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. Brian began his career as a professional music educator in 2003. After a few years as an elementary school music teacher, he became director of bands at T.A. Blakelock High School from 2006 to 2019. Brian guided both school band programs to multiple awards at provincial and national levels, and on performance tours to Boston, Chicago, Cuba, China, Halifax, Ottawa, and New York City. Brian has been active as a clinician and conductor throughout his career in Ontario. He founded and directed Oakville's High Rendition Youth Jazz Band and served as intern conductor of the Oakville Symphony Youth Band and has conducted his school district's high school honor band. Brian sat on the board of directors of the Ontario Band Association as the director of the Ontario Provincial Honor Band from 2007 to 2009. In 2017, Brian was invited to join the Lambda Iota chapter of the Phi Beta Mu International Bandmasters Fraternity. Brian himself has earned honorable awards. In 2017 and 2018, Brian received an Inspire Award from Halton District School Board. Also in 2017, Brian received the Keith Mann Outstanding Band Directors Award at Music Fest Canada's National Festival. Now he is currently teaching band, choir, music, and creative thinking at the International School of Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. Without further ado, let's jump into this week's episode and learn more about Brian's musical journey and the experiences that brought him to where he is today. So, welcome to What's Your Forte. Brian, can you briefly describe yourself and your current positions and projects?
My name is Brian Vincent. I am a music educator, and I currently am working for the International Community School in Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia. Until 2019, I was the director of the band program at Thomas A. Blakelock High School in Oakville, which is part of the Halton District School Board. I'm a Conn-Selmer clinician. I believe that making music is the most important thing that we can do. And I think I found my way into music education because that was the way that I could share my gifts and skills in music making that most aligned with who I am as a person. I spent a little bit of time working as a professional musician. I went to Wilfrid Laurier for a couple of years and studied with Guy Few when I started my undergraduate degree as a trumpet player. And then I moved on and finished my degree at the University of Toronto in the studio of Barton Woomer. That was an incredible experience. And I met so many powerful musicians at both schools that after I finished my undergraduate degree, U of T, I went and worked in the National Academy Orchestra for a short time under the direction of Boris Barat in Hamilton. And it just became really clear that being in the classroom made sense to me in a way that maybe being a member of an orchestra didn't. I had always been a camp counselor, or I had, helped support Interprovincial Music Camp, IMC, for a number of years. And so being around people in music making in an educational capacity was closer to the set of skills that I had developed as a person than sitting in an ensemble and providing music as an instrumentalist. My family and I reside in Addis Ababa, and we make music with kids from all around the world. Pretty incredible evolution from working in Oakville and making music with wonderful families and children in Halton to now making music in Addis Ababa with kids whose experiences have brought them to Addis. It's pretty exciting.
That sounds amazing. So let's just go back to the beginning of your musical journey. So your first instrument, what drew you to music in the first place?
I think community drew me to music making. So when I was a young guy, I had always sort of had a song in my mind. I remember as a kid that music was just something that buoyed me up in ways that other things didn't. By the time I was in elementary school, at that point, the Scarborough Board of Education had an itinerant music program. I went to a tiny little elementary school. There was like 150, maybe 200 kids from kindergarten to grade 8. And once a week, an itinerant music teacher would come to the school. And we started band instruments when we were in grade 4. You know the story, right? And so many people have the story. I was sick when instruments were handed out. I really wanted to play the French horn. My dad had told stories about playing French horn when he was in high school. So I thought, my dad, pretty cool guy. I thought this would be really a lot of fun. And I think the elementary school maybe had one probably terribly beat up single French horn, and it had been given out. The only instrument left was a trumpet. And Doug McCoy was a year older than I was, I think. And so the itinerant teacher said, okay, well, take this Vincent kid out into the hallway and here's a mouthpiece and see if you can make any sounds. So Doug showed me how to, create an embouchure and put the mouthpiece on my mouth. And immediately I created a buzz. He was shocked and said, wow, a lot of people take a lot longer to be able to figure that out. You figured it out right away. Great. And that was it. I was hooked. I didn't want to do anything else. So I started playing trumpet and baritone a little bit, and then moved on to playing trumpet and joined the Variety Village marching band. Again, so it was about community. The trumpet playing was always invigorating, to be sure. Wanted to be around people and do this music thing. But I played with Variety Village for a little while until I went to high school. In high school, I was introduced to the world of IMC, and I auditioned and played with the KW Youth Symphony. And then that's where I met Peter Manis. And Peter Manis, trombone player from the KW Symphony, he was helping run a brass ensemble. And in my first year playing with the KW Youth Symphony, I played in the brass ensemble. And again, that was it. That's all I wanted to do.
So what drew you to take it to another level, like take it on as a career?
I went and watched a concert. I think there was an honor band that Laurier had pulled together, and I went and auditioned for that. And part of that was working with Guy Few and Alain Trudel. I listened to Guy play, and I wanted to emulate that. That is exactly the sound I wanted to create. I wanted to go and learn from that person. So I started studying with Guy while I was still in high school. It took me on as a student, I was very grateful for. And then it became sort of a natural transition to a study with him at Laurier. Really what fostered the love for trumpet playing, I think, was being part of Variety Village, going to Scarborough Music Camp, and then the youth orchestra's experience. My in-school, the irony is my in-school experience was limited, but it was the community music making that became really important to me. And I think that's what drove me after all of my training to really pursue a career in education instead of performance. It was never really a conscious decision as much it was I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Okay, so we've reached the halfway point of the interview, which is what we call the Fast 5 Rapid Round. And there are 5 quick questions, and the answer is the first thing that pops into your head.
Great.
Are you ready? Number 1, favorite concert you attended?
Okay, well, first thing that pops into my head, I believe it was the final time that Bud Herseth played principal trumpet with the Chicago Symphony when they performed Mahler's Third Symphony. So he did the offstage post-horn solo. That's the first thing that pops into my head. Bit of an unfair question because it's really hard to choose. I can think of 15 concerts that changed my life. That one was really powerful.
And then the second one, music you listened to growing up or music that inspired you when you were young?
I was given a Sony Walkman. For all of you viewers who are, younger, this is a tape player. It's about this big or so. If you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, you know where I'm coming from. Okay. I was given a Sony Walkman, and I'm sure my parents knew it was there, but I hid it beside my bed, and a family member had given me a tape of a recording of Wynton Marsalis. And this tape was a series of cornet concertos and caprices that Wynton had recorded with the Eastman Wind Ensemble under the direction of Donald Hunsberger. And I listened to it until the tape broke. I listened to it every day. I listened to it like every time I go to bed. I could not go to sleep without putting my headphones on and listening to this cornet music with this world-class wind ensemble. And that, I think, permeated my DNA a little bit.
Third one is favorite movie soundtrack.
Jurassic Park.
Fourth one is an instrument that you wish you played.
Bagpipes. I'm the only person in the world, maybe. Yeah, I think bagpipes are pretty spectacular. And maybe one day I'll be in a place where I'll learn how to play them.
And then the last one of the rapid round is a hidden talent.
A hidden talent. Megan, you've known me for a long time. There's not much about me which is hidden. Kind of what you see is what you get. Turns out I'm actually a pretty good skier. I love it. It's kind of my happy place. Yeah, downhill skiing.
Bandology is a proud Canadian nonprofit dedicated to more music for more kids via education, collaboration, and community. Find out more at bandology.ca.
What's been the highlight of your career so far?
Oh, so, the easy answer is playing at Carnegie Hall with the Flight Clock Wind Ensemble in 2019. That is an extremely unique experience. And the families and the young people who really rose to that occasion in ways that, again, were very unique. The music that we made, the way that they conducted themselves in their music making. Yeah, I'm starting to get to a point where I think I'm ready to sort of talk about it and try and draw some learnings from it. But it was such an emotionally powerful, impactful time that I've sort of let it just sort of sit in the back of my mind. But I have a second answer, and that is the first time that the ensemble, and I think you were part of this. Were you part of the El Camino year in Ottawa? That performance was a tipping point, if I can quote Malcolm Gladwell. That was the performance where it became clear in my mind that anything was possible, that a group of people could come together and choose to do something remarkable. I mean, that program, right? What did we start the program? It was ended the El Camino Real, American Elegy.
I think the first piece of that program was Sevens.
That's what it was. What a program. And playing that in a way, yes, the people in the room are what made it so real, but at the same time, the choice by the people in the room to play that music in the way that we did was something that I think was another moment in time where I took a step forward as a human being and as a musician and as a music educator. And it really taught me what is actually possible and what young people can they actually can do this, and they can do it. They can make music in impactful ways that is meaningful to them, that also enriches the lives of the listeners around them. You don't have to be 27 with a master's degree from some great school. I mean, that's all really well and good, but just caring enough and working hard enough and believing in each other enough and trusting in the ensemble enough and trusting in the choices of your conductor enough and doing all those human components which allow communities to be vibrant and then make music. I mean, it was all right there. So I think that was maybe the most impactful concert, which of course was another step along the road to playing in Carnegie Hall.
So the next one's kind of another big one, and it's, why is music education important to you?
Our world has sort of become this place where individuality is important and celebrated, and our mediums, social media, have pushed people into different corners. And then COVID comes along and sort of solidifies some of that. Music education to me is really important because it will absolutely stand for developing community. You cannot do this by yourself. You can go off and make music by yourself, but ensemble music needs to be something that represents what it is to be a group of people together trying to create something unique, and the kind of creative thinking which is required in order for something unique to be created and to be celebrated by both the ensemble and their audience. If you take music education out of that, we lose the opportunity to celebrate music making in the here and now and in the live context. I mean, there's lots of great, YouTube's wonderful, and there's lots of great concerts that you can go and look up right this very second. But being able to be in the space, in the room, with the musicians and the composer's music, and then that wonderful bridge, which is the intent that the musicians have to bring that music to life, that you have to be there to get that. I mean, yes, YouTube, fine, or other recordings, but it's not the same as being in the space and being part of the creation of that music. Audiences are just as important as ensembles. So music education is how those ensembles will come to be. I've thought about this for a long time, because music making doesn't need to be justified. We make music because we're human beings. And that's all that needs to be said. Why music education? Because they're kids, because they're people. The end, right? And do things come out of strong music programs that allow the learners to develop cognitive skill sets that they wouldn't otherwise maybe develop in the same way? Yes. It needs to be something that we do because it's part of the human condition. And on one sticking point that I think will become part of my going forward in my journey, I have a real deep problem with stopping people from making music because they may not be good enough. Do I have a problem with audition ensembles? Absolutely not. I think we need to allow people who want to spend a tremendous amount of time making music in really detailed ways, work with other people who are like-minded. But I think that we need to create opportunities for everyone to participate, regardless of what that participation might look like, because it changes. Some people may fall into music making and only after being around the community and being around the ensemble and having several opportunities start to believe that A, they can do it, and B, they should work harder at it. But if they're not included early on because of some sense of, well, this just isn't really for you and you're having a really hard time with rhythm and maybe you just don't understand it. Yeah, we need to fight back against that. This idea of elitist, top-down kind of thinking that music making somehow is only for people who can do it. Music making is for everybody, and music education needs to resound with everybody. I have no idea how to do it. When I write it down, I'll sell the book and we'll talk again. But let's all make music, because coming out of COVID, we're going to need something to lead us out of COVID. And I think music making and music education could be it.
Certainly, yeah. Obviously, you have a lot of young musicians in your life.
Yeah.
So do you have advice for young musicians?
Okay, so generally, it's hard. Music making is hard. It's hard. It's not supposed to be easy. How many people buy guitars and then never play them, right? However, that shouldn't stop people from trying and experimenting and basically play with the Play-Doh. Find a way into meaning. Find a way into not questioning why something is important to you. Just let it be important. It's all about curiosity. So if you're really curious about playing the trumpet, play the trumpet and listen to lots of people playing the trumpet and watch lots of recordings of people playing the trumpet, and then get a trumpet and play the trumpet. And then when you need help, reach out for help. It certainly might take a little bit of time, but there are so many resources now that make it easy to reach out to a whole bunch of different people, whether it's a Facebook group or actually finding the name of a trumpet professor, a piano professor, whoever. Reach out to someone and say, hey, listen, I can't quite figure out how to do this. Do you have any suggestions? I think people get shy about asking for help. But if you're really super curious about how to do something, then it's really not all that difficult to take the next step in saying, I need help. And it doesn't mean that we're not strong. It doesn't mean that we don't believe in ourselves. It means that we're guided by a sense of, I want to know more. Too many times I've had students say to me, their biggest frustration with education is they go into a classroom and very quickly they feel like they should already know what the teacher's talking about. Don't ever feel like you're supposed to understand what's going on in music before you start making it. The journey of learning it is going to be what teaches you what's going on in music. Be insatiable about it. And if you are, you'll find that this world of Technicolor opens up, this world of imagination opens up for you that nothing else, I think, can compare to. But you have to be active in it. It's not going to be, oh, I read a book and now I know how to play the bagpipes. No, right? You need to be active in pursuing understanding. So why don't people do that? Well, because they don't want to fail. If we could get that out of our psyche and believe that curiosity comes with, pitfalls along the way, then we won't stop being curious about things. We'll ask good questions. And then those questions will allow us to fuel our curiosity so that we learn more.
And that actually brings us to our last question is, do you have any exciting plans or new projects coming up?
I need to know more. I've sort of gone as far as I can go with the amount of formal education that I have. And one of the really exciting things about working in an international school is that these schools are like educational Ferraris. They pivot very quickly. They interpret new data very quickly. They hire people who think in invigorating and creative ways. They allow for interpretation of data to also define student success. There are 1,000 or so students at the International Community School of Addis Ababa. And, they're all remarkable and unique in their own way. They are no different than the students that we would find in a publicly funded school here in Ontario or anywhere in the West, to be sure. The difference is that the modalities with which we describe learning are very different than the modalities which learning is described by here in North America. Now, I have to be very careful because in no way, shape, or form am I making a comparison, because comparisons can't be made. The public education system in Ontario, because the only one I've taught in, specifically in Halton, I think is led by a tremendous number of people who are working very hard to devise strategy for as many people as possible to be as successful as possible. It is a tremendous undertaking, and my hat is off to the leaders and the folks who are thinking in those modalities and trying to help as many people as possible. It's remarkable. Working in an international school allows me to bring some of my interests about larger communities being served artistically into the classroom in ways that readily combine with other kinds of learning, whether it's in language arts or whether it's in science or whether it's in math. However, I need to go and do some more learning. I need to sort of sit at the feet of some of these giants. Dr. Timothy Stewart, our head of school, is one of them. Dr. Sasha Heckman is another one. And I apologize for dropping some names here, but we work in something called a PLC, a professional learning community. And it's time that our leaders have set aside for educators to come together and ask big questions. So there's 4 questions. What do we want students to know and be able to do? Okay, well, that's sort of a universal question I think most educators should ask themselves. How do we know that they're doing it or able to demonstrate their understanding? Okay, well, I hope a lot of educators are asking themselves that question. It certainly can't always look like a written test. Let's be clear about that. But the next 2 questions I think are what make PLC so important. What do we do if a student isn't learning it? As a teacher, an educator, what are our responsibilities? And what are the responsibilities of the learners who are in that sort of question 3 category? And question 4 is even more invigorating. It's what about the students who already know it? In any given classroom, we're going to have students who are already sitting there for whatever reason going, I get this, can we move on? So our PLC group then, our professional learning group as faculty, sit and use those 4 questions to make curricular decisions. I think most importantly, make assessment decisions. And this is where my background as a music educator, I think, is invaluable, because we assess all the time. Musicians are always assessing. I just had a practice session. Did it help? Did I do it? Did it make it better? Have I figured things out? Have I gotten stronger? What if 45 minutes just sitting here blowing through the horn? What's changed? Sometimes nothing. Sometimes there are, some of these epiphanies. Oh my God, I can do that now. I can play a high A or whatever, right? So assessment and assessment criteria are in other subject areas things that stop students from learning, where in music education, they should be the things that invigorate learning. So that's what I need to go and do. My next challenge is learning from some of these people in really invigorating ways, doing some graduate work. I'm excited to get some graduate work going. I'm not quite sure how that's going to unfold yet, but I am very mindful. My wife is very supportive of me doing that kind of work. I still believe that there will be a role for me in leadership one day. I want to be in the rehearsal hall. I want to make music with kids and with people for the rest of my life, but that doesn't preclude the opportunities that may come along to find my way into administrating a school as a principal or deputy principal or what have you. So I'm curious about those kind of things. But it's this curiosity, this insatiable curiosity that I think is going to push me to do that. So in short order, I'm already working with people who are trying to look at education as something that empowers learning instead of just knowledge and understanding, and empowers learners to talk about their learning. And I think music education can play a really important role in how that moves forward. And I'm going to do some graduate work and do some writing and, keep making music with kids. And we were just lucky enough that ICS and Addis selected Carlene and I to do that with them. We're just very lucky to be where we are, I think.
That wraps up this episode, actually, and I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to chat and to tell me about your different experiences and your thoughts surrounding music and education.
Megan, it is great to see you and see you being so successful, and I'm honored and very grateful to have had the chance to talk with you. I hope we talk again as the years go along. Stay in touch, please. Best of luck to everyone at Bandology. I think the advocacy for music education Bandology is pulling together is really important for us to be able to move forward. So thank you for everything, and good luck to you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
A big thank you again to Brian for taking the time to sit down and chat with me and being a guest on What's Your Forte. If you want to stay up to date or catch up on any of our episodes, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on your favorite podcasting platform.
Thanks for joining us on What's Your Forte, presented by Bandology. If you liked what you heard, you can find out more about this series and our organization at bandology.ca, which features information about research, advocacy, and music education, and our band camp and play a gig programs. Follow us on social media for more videos and performances on Instagram and Facebook.